All right, let's talk Los Angeles Chargers. Obviously, a strong first season under Harbaugh. Disappointing end, of course, with the playoffs, but the future is certainly bright in Los Angeles. They just have to make a few key moves to shore up some weaknesses on this roster. And to that end, the Chargers are linked to a potentially massive move that could put this Los Angeles team into the upper echelon of the AFC. Exciting news out of LA. But first, I'm Nick, and this is Saturday Morning Inspection. All right, it's this time of year as we get deeper into the playoffs and still a few months removed, or a few weeks removed, I should say, from the official start of the league year free agency. It's where you hear about back dealings and things like that, communication going on, executives behind the scenes, and some really good reporters, specifically ESPN's Jeremy Fowler, have really great contacts, and they can kind of, put feelers out there and figure out where teams are looking and what deals could potentially happen. And there's one interesting one that has started to pop up involving the Los Angeles Chargers trading for Seattle Seahawks wide receiver DK Metcalf. Let's jump right into this report, courtesy of ESPN. Again, this is Jeremy Fowler. Metcalf is still in his prime at age 27 and is a challenge for opposing defensive coordinators. But Jackson Smith and Jigba received more targets than Metcalf among Seattle receivers this season, 8.1 to 7.2 per game, and Metcalf, a projected 2026 free agent, likely needs a new contract, which won't be cheap. The Seahawks can still get good value for him, and he could pair with Lad McConkey for a good inside-out tandem. An NFL coordinator said of a move to the Chargers. Justin Herbert to Metcalf would be scary. I think Los Angeles will be looking to help the quarterback in a big way. One of the things that we've talked about with the Chargers this offseason is they have some big decisions to make. Khalil Mack, Joey Bosa, talking about like subtractions, right? Do they let Mack go? Do they let Bosa go? How about an addition here? And I love the momentum and the energy behind this potential trade, which I think would be perfect for Los Angeles, adding a big time playmaker. Miles, I'm curious what your thoughts are on all of this, but Chargers fans, you first in the comment section below. What would you give up for DK Metcalf in this situation, right? Obviously, there's salary cap dollars and things like that that have to be taken into consideration, but we'll forget that. Just what would you surrender? Second round pick, first round pick, Bosa, whatever it may be. Give us what you would give up for DK Metcalf. Put it in the comment section below. But Miles, what are your thoughts on this latest news out of LA?
Yeah, Nick, I think this is a really interesting idea that's popped up. Obviously, Jeremy Fowler doesn't usually talk about stuff unless it has at least some merit. This early on in the cycle, he wouldn't just bring rumors out if it wasn't floated around league offices a little bit. I think this is a really interesting thing to think about here because the Chargers really could definitely benefit from a guy like Metcalf. Metcalf is what Johnston should have been. Big receiver, quick, good hands. Johnson has two of those things. One of the things, the good hands, he does not have. He's had some crucial drops down the stretch for this Chargers team. So I think this really makes a lot of sense in an archetype of a guy in Johnson that the Chargers wanted at one point in time. This is the real deal. This is the proven thing. So DK Metcalf fits that really, really nicely for them. But you talk about potential here. You look at what is available on both sides. You talk about what do? You trade for DK Metcalf? Are you going to surrender a bunch of draft picks? Is there a player involved? You talk about, well, who they going to let go? We've talked about this before. It seems more like Khalil Mack is being a favorite to keep rather than Joey Bosa. Does that mean you trade Bosa? Does the Seahawks need an edge? Yes, they do, because they're really kind of weak at the edge position. Derek Hall, he's been up and down. Really hasn't been great first year, 44 PFF grade. Second year, 2024, 60 PFF grade. Nwosu has been mediocre, but they need a star at the edge. I think there's a lot of really interesting things that could happen here. So I like this idea of DK Metcalf to the Chargers because it really makes sense. DK Metcalf is the exact player that the Chargers are looking for. That is the role that they need to fill, while the Seahawks, they need either draft capital or players to help rebuild, especially on certain key pieces of the defense and maybe across the offensive line as well. I think these would be really great options for both teams, and that is why the merger of the two really makes a whole lot of sense to me.
Yeah, the Chargers are in an interesting spot roster-wise, and they've done a lot of good things, obviously, in Ortiz and Harbaugh's first year, building a solid roster with a lot of depth in a lot of key areas. It was a really nice job, and of course, they've got quarterback knocked down with Justin Herbert. But the reality is the Chargers are deficient in one of the most important areas. they lack elite big time playmakers on both sides of the football. Bosa obviously aging out has not become the or is no longer an elite playmaker as an edge rusher. Matt can still get it done, but he's getting old as well. You've got McConkey, who's outstanding, but he's obviously a more traditional slot guy. Running backs, hey, by committee, they got it done. Tight end, not great, not terrible, but not great. They don't have enough big play receivers, right? They don't have those big play guys, that playmakers, that Jamar Chase for the Bengals, where you throw a 10-yard slant and he runs for 80. Justin Jefferson, CeeDee Lamb, Amon-Ra St. Brown, AJ Brown, right? You go through all these top flight contenders. It doesn't have to be a wide receiver, it could be a tight end. In fact, of course, Kelsey with the Chiefs, Rob Gronkowski with the Patriots before him. You have elite playmakers paired with great quarterbacks, and good things can happen. It opens up the rest of the offense. And the Chargers, we kind of all saw it in the playoff game against the Houston Texans. They're totally lacking that. Once a team kind of figures them out stylistically, what the Chargers want to do, power football, play action. Herbert does great things. McConkey does some great damage in the slot. But once teams that have a lot of talent and good coaches figure that out, it gets ugly and ugly quickly. The one way to counterbalance that is have a playmaker that teams have to account for. Because one thing about the Chargers is that they have a really solid strategy. Harbaugh, Roman, they do a great job on offense. But the problem is it's a strategy that can be countered, right? Because it's X's and O's. Any X's and O's game plan can be beaten or at least solidly matched up against with another game plan. But something that teams can't really handle as well is a Joe, not an X's and O's, but a Joe, just an elite top flight playmaker that blows everything up. That's what the Chargers are missing, and that's what Metcalf can give them. Just complete, total, undeniable physical freak, run after the catch, vertical, intermediate. He does it all. He's also a pretty good blocker when he puts his mind to it as well, so he can fit into that Chargers running culture too. I think this trade makes perfect sense. I think there's a lot of reasons why a guy like Jeremy Fowler has come out and said there's a chance of it happening. I think it's logic. I think at this point it works too well for both teams, and I would not be surprised if we hear more about this in the future.